Steve, I want to switch to the Democratic side now. Do the landslide victories that Bernie Sanders saw in states like Washington and Hawaii over the weekend, do they give him a shot at catching Clinton?
Only if he continues to win in those kinds of landslides. I mean, if you look at the math, he's still at a point behind Clinton, so far behind Clinton, that he doesn't really, I mean, he has to win by 70 and 80% in the remaining primaries and caucuses in the Democratic primary race. And he just hasn't shown that he can do that. He's done very well in caucuses. You've had a few of them butted up against each other in the last week or so, and he's had pretty good success there. But he's got some really competitive races coming up in New York State and at the end of the month in the Northeast. Places that are a bit more diverse. They are actual votes. They're not caucuses, and places where we think that Hillary Clinton may do better. And so if he doesn't come out of those places with wins of 70, 80% of the vote, then it's going to be really difficult for him to catch her. Keep this in mind. In 2008, when Clinton was challenging Obama in the primary, then she got within 90, I believe, around 90 delegates in terms of pledged delegates of Obama, and she still was unable to bridge that gap, mainly because the way the Democrats allocate their delegates is proportionally. So unless you're winning by huge margins, the loser still is getting a significant number of delegates. And so the advantage that Sanders had over the weekend, he may have netted several dozen delegates over the weekend, but she wound up just winning in Florida, winning more delegates than he did in 3 races. So he's got a really tough road ahead, and unless he can show that he can pull these kinds of victories consistently between now and June 7th, I just don't see how the math works for him.
Even if the math is not in Sanders' favor, Kate, we do know that Sanders is challenging Hillary Clinton to another debate. Obviously, it seems as if he thinks that this will help with his momentum. Do you see that playing out?
It definitely could, but what it comes down to, Steve is exactly right. The numbers just are very hard to come down into Bernie Sanders' favor. Hillary Clinton is in such a good spot with delegates. I think he's going to need to do really well, as he said, in New York next week to actually have a chance. But I just saw a new report that Bernie Sanders has raised $4 million since Saturday with all of those runs. So he definitely has the money behind him. He said that he wants to be in for all 50 contests. But at this point, it's going to start coming down to, as if next week, if he doesn't do well in New York, is he in the race for the nomination, or is he in to still try to continue to bring this race further to the left and to have his voice heard and to try to continue to energize the younger voters as we go into more of a general election?
And if that's the case, Kate, it's not unprecedented. I mean, we saw Hillary Clinton stay in the race until the very end in 2008, and I think a lot of people wanted to see the Democratic Party get around one candidate, but she stayed in until the very end. 1992, the same thing happened when Jerry Brown ran against Bill Clinton, and so there's a tradition of candidates who can continue to fund themselves, and Bernie Sanders is going to have no trouble raising money after these wins. For staying in the race and arguing their message for as long as they can do it. As we've seen in the past, the only 2 things that have really forced people out of the race: money and scandal. And Sanders has neither of those right now. He's having no problem raising money, and I think he's going to stay in this as long as he can, even if the nomination is out of reach for him.
Exactly. I was just going to make one quick point.
Sure.
That's exactly right. And if you look at it, Hillary Clinton is in better shape delegate-wise than Barack Obama was in even 2008. So yes, she will take it, but why? There's no reason for Bernie Sanders to drop out at this point. Hillary Clinton has always done better when she is in a contested primary, and that's when her true colors show, and she really comes out of her shell more than in a time when she isn't in a contested primary. So this could only help her.
Good perspective from both of you. Steve Chaggaris and Cate Martel, thank you both so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.